How's it going, everybody? This is BeatTheBush. One of the most common questions that comes up whenever I have a subscriber gathering is, what did my parents think of me becoming a YouTuber? Today, I'm going to talk about the whole process of me sort of onboarding my parents into this life, this alternative life that I've gave myself. Typically during a real person-to-person conversation, I wouldn't go around telling them the whole backstory because it's going to take like 10 minutes or so. In a real conversation, I would generally say, well, my parents didn't really care, and I was actually really surprised because this is something that I thought they would at least disagree a little bit on. I need to try to convince them. They're going to say something, but to my surprise that they did not say anything negative at all. At any moment, they did not say, hey, you should go find a job. Never have that even happened one time. This is actually, I don't know, super encouraging to me. So going a little bit deeper, I would imagine if I just kind of laid it on them, right? Just kind of surprise them. One day I was an engineer. The next day I did not tell them anything about my YouTube activities or anything. And I just say, hey you guys, I'm thinking of becoming a YouTuber. I am sure they're going to say something about it. But during this whole maybe 1 year or so before I actually quit, at first I told them about my super success with my viral video, and then I kept on doing it, and every once in a while I'm saying, hey, you know, I'm making a little bit more. I'm making a little bit more and a little bit more. Hey, you know, I'm thinking, you know, what do you guys think if I ever quit? You know, maybe this is gonna be a thing for me. So during this whole process, they obviously had obvious questions about how the heck do you make money with making, you know, YouTube videos online? How do you actually get paid? What is the mechanism there? So, you know, I explained to them, you know, it's basically through ads, sponsorship, referrals, and things like that. So once they realize that this is a monetizable thing, this is an actual thing that people do, I told them that real money is coming in and I actually can afford to pay for my living expenses, so I'm not going to be like out in the streets or something. So they are not worried that, you know, I'm going to be homeless or anything. So I think because of this fact, they were a lot more accepting to me doing this full time when I finally quit my engineering job. Now let me talk a little bit about my siblings. I have 2 older brothers and 1 older sister. For my oldest brother, he lives in the Bay Area, and generally I kept almost everyone pretty up to date about my YouTube activities. It's like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. And they're like, oh, really? Haha, that's kind of funny. And so with my older brother, it wasn't like a really big shock or anything. What was interesting was with my second oldest brother, he lives in Hong Kong. When I went to visit him, the first thing he told me was, hey, you know what? I just saw your Bitcoin video. I didn't know you make YouTube videos, right? So then I'm like, oh yeah, you know, this is kind of something I've been doing. And, you know, I kind of only do that these days. So this is like a funny thing, right? It's kind of like a shocking thing where he just kind of found out. And I actually did make a vlog on from Hong Kong. So he's in one of my videos. If you guys, you know, dig around, you'll see that. My older sister, I explained all of this to her as well. But then after I quit my job, after I kind of did YouTube full time for several months or something, she came back and said, hey, you know, you should, you know, check out this job at Facebook, check out this job at, you know, whatever FANG company. So my reception to this is I was basically uninterested. I'm like, no, it took me so much work to get to this point. Why would I just go back and... Sorry. Okay, let me get some sip of tea here. I get a little bit emotional whenever I talk about the process of what I had to do to get into this YouTube situation because it took me a lot of work. So let me stop talking about that or I'm going to get emotional. I think my sister thought that, oh, this might be kind of like a temporary thing. Maybe I should go back to work as an engineer. So this thought, you know, it certainly wasn't in line with where I was going. So I thought this was the only comment coming from my immediate family where, you know, okay, maybe you shouldn't do that. By the way, she probably is watching this video because she's been watching my recent video. So hi, Liz. So anyway, don't think too much about that. These kind of responses I pretty much expect you can go either way. I try to prepare people around me saying, this is kind of something that I would be doing. But, I certainly don't even know if I'm going to be doing this long term. I mean, I've been doing this for 2 years. Is it going to last 2 more years? Is it going to last 1 more year? 10 years? I don't know. But I do know this is that making these videos, it's kind of fun for me. I'm even making one today. I plan to release it on tomorrow, even though I don't have to, just because, I'm like, hey, let's make one. It's kind of fun. So let me go on about my parents in terms of their reaction with me becoming a YouTuber and just kind of abandoning a lucrative engineering career, because I was pretty well paid as an electrical engineer. I had a very good career path. I kept on, getting raises, getting promotions, and had a good degree and everything. So, all this background, typical Asian parents thing, you should get a professional job, become a lawyer, engineer, or a doctor or something. So I was one of them. And, this is something I feel I did what typical Asian parents wants their kids to do. Although I don't think my parents were actually expecting me to become a professional engineer, because this is something that I just kind of planned on my own. And you'll see why when I tell the story about my childhood. My parents, at least in my perspective, had a very hands-off approach. They just kind of try to provide me with the resources, I guess. And they never pressured me to, oh, you got to get straight A's or something. I remember them saying, very, very lightly, it's good to get that. But then in the end, it was me who pushed myself. And I think this formula sort of works for raising a kid. I don't know how I got into this situation where I was a studious person. No one pushed me to do it. It just came naturally to me. It's like, oh, study? Okay, let me go do that. Like I said, I grew up with 2 older brothers and 1 older sister. And basically, when my parents were raising my older brothers, we were all living in Hong Kong. And generally, the culture at the time is that, you punish your kids with a beating if they did anything wrong. And so what I saw when I was a kid was that my brothers got the grunt of all the beating. And when it came to me, maybe they got a little bit older, so they don't have as much energy to hit me or something. But I got a little bit, okay? I still got a little bit of beating here and there, just so that I won't do certain things. So amongst my siblings, I was probably the least beaten. But then I turned out just fine. I feel like I turned out just fine. My mom basically said that she tried the best with my siblings, and it didn't work too well. My older brothers, actually. And so when it came to me and my sister, she just kind of did a laissez-faire kind of thing. It's like, okay, it didn't work when they tried, the punishment route. So now it's just kind of going, whatever, you do what you want. And then it turned out better, I think. So let me recount what actually happened in my childhood. I was actually a very terrible student. My mom got me into this Catholic grade school thing, and she had to call in some favors with some nuns in order to get me in. And when the report cards came in, this was really funny, because back in Hong Kong, they rate people by the number that you are in your class. If you have 400 in your class, 400 means you're number 1, okay? So you want a higher number. And if you're number 1, you're actually the last in line, which means your scores are the worst ever. So I remember getting my report card. I was like number 34, 47 or something like that. Only like 30, 40 people that are worse than me. So, the nun was like, oh my gosh, we did a special thing to accept your son into this program. And look at him. He's like a terrible, terrible student. And so when we went home, I was like, hey, you know what? My report card is not that bad. I mean, there's still like 34 students that are worse than I am. 34 is a big number, right? So anyway, let me just fast forward a little bit. A few years back, I went back to that same Catholic grade school, and then they were actually super duper proud of me. The nun was actually like telling all the other people, hey, yeah, remember that kid that got like really bad grades? He's actually in America now. He's an engineer, he graduated from UCLA and blah, 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 So it's so weird how, a terrible student goes from, bad student to good student. I don't know how that worked, but let me tell you how I thought it worked. is because when I moved from Hong Kong, I used to be a very terrible student, right? Judging from my report card, that's before I even realized that you should be studying, because I remember, all throughout my childhood back in Hong Kong, all I ever did whenever I get home was I only watched TV. Okay, I only watch cartoon. I spent very, very little time on homework. The homework was an afterthought. I just tried to scribble something, just so that it looks like I did something. And at one point, I remember taking a math exam and I finished it. And I thought I did very, very well. I thought I got every single problem right. But somehow, when I got the exam back, I got like a B minus, C plus or something very terrible, a lot different than what I thought I was going to get. Till this day, I still thought that, I probably answered every single problem correctly. How did I get such a low score? I don't know. There must be some conspiracy going on or something. Maybe someone's out to get me to purposely mark my score low, or maybe it's true that I totally did not understand how math works. But when I moved to the US, I was in first grade. And then suddenly, when I moved here, I was in second grade. Oh my gosh, suddenly I thought I was some math genius or something because I skipped a grade. I built this huge confidence for some weird reason. And then all of a sudden, me doing my regular thing on math, it was so easy for me. All of a sudden, I was the top of my class. I was the best at my math in the entire class, not the best at English, but that gave me a huge confidence boost. And from that was probably why I did better and better at school. I'm like, hey, this is something I can do. So then I would put more work into it, just to keep up the status. And I think that's how it got started. I still didn't do very well in grades 3, 4, 5. It sort of gradually improved as my English improved, but it really kicked into high gear sometime around the 7th, 8th grade, where it actually matters. I got completely lucked out here because where it matters, 7th or 8th grade or so, it's where your grades and your records starts, getting written down on paper so that the colleges can see it. So then I did very well starting from 7th, 8th grade where it actually mattered. So I don't know how that happened, I get lucky, I talk about a lot of lucky instances. I moved here. Suddenly I got lucky in terms of this confidence boost. I jumped a grade. I got lucky that I suddenly decided to start studying a lot more during 7th grade. I don't know. I don't remember an actual reason why I actually did that. Let me drink some tea. I hope this is interesting for you guys because this is kind of like my life story, at least the childhood part. I don't know if a lot of people like to talk about when they're in grade school and all these other little things, getting hit and stuff while they're a kid. So I do remember back in junior high, back in high school, every semester or whatever, I would bring home a straight A report card to my mom, because she sees it first. I remember she being home a lot more because my dad had to work a lot more. And then when I show it to her, it's like she takes a look at it and then go, oh, pretty good. Very unreactive. It's not like, wow, this is great. Oh, let me give you $1 for each A or $5 or something, right? I remember I had friends that gets paid per number of A's that they get, but then I don't remember getting it. I don't think I got it ever, at least from my memory. So this is where this whole laissez-faire parenting come from. My parents, they tried something with my brothers. It didn't work. And then they were also a bit too busy with their own jobs. And so they just let me do whatever I want. And somehow I turned out okay. How did this happen? I don't know. You might need to say, okay, maybe it's the person. Maybe it's, I just got lucky. Maybe it's the environment I grew up in. I don't know. But then these days, sometimes I purposely choose a weekday to go treat my parents out to lunch or something. I would go over for dinner. And then they would say, yeah, this is very nice that I have the freedom to do stuff anytime I want. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this kind of like a story time type of thing. I enjoy sharing it with you guys. Don't forget to give me a like on this video, comment down below. Let me know what you think. If laissez-faire, hands-off approach to parenting works. And as always, don't forget to push that subscribe button and ring that bell icon. Thanks for watching.